The twin suns burned the desert like two fires hanging in the sky. The heat was so strong that the air itself looked like it was melting. Eli Drake walked slowly through the endless dunes. His lips cracked, his skin dry, and his breath shallow. For 3 days he had not found water. Not even a single drop. His ship had crashed miles behind him. Now only the wind and sand were his company. Every step felt like walking through fire. His boots were filled with dust, his throat screamed for water, and his mind was filled with memories of Earth, blue oceans, rain, and the sound of rivers. He smiled weakly, knowing he would never see them again. The desert stretched forever. No trees, no shadows, only dunes that rolled like waves frozen in time. He fell on his knees, his strength gone, his backpack empty. His vision started to blur, and he whispered, "So this is how it ends." But then something strange caught his eye. In the middle of the sand, a faint light glowed, weak but steady. He blinked, thinking it was another mirage, but it did not fade. It was half buried in the ground, shaped like a horn. Black with a shimmer of blue running along its curves, Eli crawled toward it, his fingers trembling when he touched it. It felt cool, almost alive, like the horn was breathing. It pulsed under his skin as if it had a heartbeat. He didn't care what it was. His body only wanted one thing, water. His hand shook as he lifted it, and to his shock, clear liquid started to drip from the horn's mouth. Cold and shining like crystal, without thinking, he brought it to his lips and drank. The water was sweeter than anything he had ever tasted. It filled his mouth, slid down his throat, and his whole body came alive again. His heart beat faster. His vision cleared. He gasped in relief, laughing softly. "I'm saved." "Thank you," he said to no one. But the moment he finished the last drop, the world changed. The sky above darkened. Clouds formed from nowhere. Lightning flashed across the twin suns, and a chill ran through the hot desert air. Eli froze, his body stiff, and then he heard it. A voice, low, cold, and full of anger, whispering from the horn still in his hand. "You took my 50 years of life," it hissed, the sound slithering through his mind like smoke. Eli dropped the horn in shock, but it did not fall. It stuck to his hand like it was glued. He tried to pull it off, but the harder he pulled, the tighter it held. The horn started glowing brighter, blue lines crawling up his arm. His veins lighting up under his skin, he screamed, the light spreading across his chest, his heart beating with strange power. He felt something moving inside him, something alive that was not him. "What is this?" he shouted, but the voice only laughed, dark and echoing. "You drank my years. Now you carry my burden." The sand around him began to move, swirling like a living thing, forming strange patterns. The air was filled with a deep hum, and the dunes trembled. Eli tried to stand, but his legs shook. He looked down and saw shadows forming in the sand, long, thin shapes like arms reaching up toward him. The horn pulsed again, stronger this time. His skin burned, and a vision flashed in his mind. Faces, glowing eyes, and tall beings with curved horns rising above their heads, their mouths whispering the same words again and again. "Give it back. Give it back." Eli stumbled backward, panting. His heartbeat thundered, and the desert suddenly went silent. No wind, no sound. Only the faint glow from the horn still stuck to him. He looked at the horizon, but there was no end, no help. Just the same golden waves of sand stretching forever. He fell to his knees again, sweat dripping from his forehead, his hands shaking as he tried once more to pull off the horn. "Please stop," he whispered, but the voice answered, "It has begun, human. Now your time is mine." The blue light from the horn grew brighter until it surrounded him completely. The air vibrated and the ground beneath him cracked open, revealing a faint light deep under the surface. It was like the desert was alive. Breathing beneath him, Eli tried to crawl away, but something grabbed his ankle. A hand made of sand, cold and strong. He kicked it away and fell face first into the dirt. He looked back and saw more shapes forming, dozens of them, rising slowly from the sand. Their glowing eyes fixed on him. "Who are you?" he shouted, his voice breaking. But the only answer was the same whisper coming from all directions. "You took what was mine." Then as suddenly as it began, the wind blew again, and the shapes melted back into the sand. The desert returned to silence. Only the horn's faint blue light remained. Pulsing softly on his wrist, Eli sat there, shaking, staring at the strange glow. He didn't know what he had awakened, but deep inside, something told him this desert was not empty, and that by drinking from that horn, he had started something that could not be undone. He looked at the sky where lightning still flashed far away, and whispered, "What did I just do?" But there was no answer, only the faint hiss of the wind. and the echo of that cold voice inside his head, promising that the real price was yet to come. The first light of dawn crept across the dunes like liquid gold, touching Eli's face and forcing his eyes open. He gasped as if waking from a nightmare. His body trembling, the horn still stuck to his wrist. Faintly glowing blue, he sat up slowly, breathing hard, every breath heavy and cold, though the desert was burning hot again. He looked at his hands and his eyes widened in fear. Blue light ran through his veins like rivers of fire under his skin. His pulse echoed like a drum in his ears. He could hear his own heartbeat. Too slow, too strong, too strange. He tried again to rip the horn off, but it refused to move. The surface had melted into his skin like metal turned flesh. "What's happening to me?" he whispered, his voice shaking. The air around him felt heavier. The sand near his feet hummed faintly, like the ground itself could hear his words. Suddenly a faint whisper rose again, coming not from around him but from inside his mind. A voice old and cold. "You carry my years, human," it said. 50 years of my life stolen in one sip." Eli froze, his throat dry again. "Who are you?" he shouted, but only the wind answered. The dunes stretched in every direction, empty and silent. He felt madness creeping in. It was just water. "I was dying," he shouted again, but the whisper came back, calm this time, almost sad. "Water? You call it water? You drank my soul." The words crawled through his mind like snakes, and his head throbbed with pain. Flashes of strange images filled his vision. An alien temple of glass. Tall beings with horns of light standing over a black desert. One of them kneeling as blue fire surrounded her. Her voice echoing, "Bind my years to the horn until my return." Then everything went black again. Eli opened his eyes and found himself standing. Though he didn't remember moving, the horn's glow was brighter now, forming faint symbols that wrapped around his arm. They looked like a language, alive and shifting. "What do you want from me?" he said softly, and the whisper answered, "Survive, human, so I may survive through you." He stepped back, his heart pounding. He didn't understand what that meant. He only knew he had to move, to find water, to find anyone. So he started walking, his steps uncertain, the sand crunching beneath his boots. But something felt different. His body was not weak anymore. His muscles were stronger, his sight sharper. He could hear things far away, the shifting of sand, the hiss of wind, even the faint sound of movement under the ground. After hours of walking, he saw something strange ahead, a shimmer in the distance. Like water, but when he got closer, it was no oasis. It was a field of bones half buried in the sand, hundreds of them, some huge and alien, some small and fragile human bones among them. Eli's stomach twisted. He knelt beside one skeleton and noticed something in its hand. Another horn, cracked and faded, carved with the same glowing lines as his own. He reached out and the horn in his wrist pulsed violently, sending a jolt of energy through his arm. The whisper hissed louder this time. "Do not touch it. That is the vessel of another." Eli pulled his hand back, shocked. "What do you mean? What happened to them?" The whisper sighed like wind across stone. They took what was not theirs, and their time was taken instead. The ground trembled softly, and the sand shifted as if breathing. Shadows flickered between the dunes, tall and thin, moving with unnatural grace. Eli turned around, his heart hammering. "Who's there?" he shouted. But there was no answer, only the same faint whisper now coming from many directions. "Give it back. Give it back." He ran, his boots slipping in the soft sand. His body faster than before, too fast, each leap covered meters. The blue light from his veins growing brighter the more he moved, as if his new strength was feeding from the desert itself. But the voices followed him, hundreds of them crying, "Return the years. Thief of life." Eli stumbled, falling down a steep dune, rolling until he hit something hard. He groaned, blinking sand out of his eyes, and realized he had fallen into a pit. It wasn't deep, but the air inside was colder, stiller, the sand below packed tight like stone. When he looked around, he saw carvings etched into the walls, ancient drawings showing horned beings giving glowing horns to kneeling figures. Then later, those same figures turning to dust, their bones lying beneath shining symbols. Eli's heart raced as realization hit him. "It's a curse," he whispered. "These horns, they hold life itself." The whisper in his mind seemed pleased. "You begin to understand, human." He turned, his hands shaking. You're one of them, aren't you? One of these horned creatures?" The voice answered, "Once I was their queen. Now I am trapped in you. Eli's mind spun, his throat dry again. Then take it back. Take your years, he shouted, slamming his arm against the wall, but the horn only pulsed stronger. Pain shot through him like lightning. The whisper grew dark again. It is not so simple. Now that you have tasted eternity. He fell to his knees, panting, sweat dripping down his face. The air around him heavy and cold. Above, the twin suns began to set, and the pit filled with long shadows in the darkness. Glowing eyes appeared at the edge of the pit, watching him silently, tall figures made of sand and light, slowly sinking into the ground. When he looked directly at them, Eli's breath caught. He whispered to himself, I'm not alone down here. But deep inside his chest, the voice spoke one last time before fading. No, human, you never were. He stared into the dark, his heartbeat echoing like thunder in the silent pit, the glowing veins under his skin now burning brighter, as if the desert itself had marked him forever. The night fell like a blanket of ink, covering the desert in a silence so heavy it pressed against Eli's chest. The stars burned cold and bright above him, and the air was colder now, though the sand still glowed faintly blue where the horn's light touched it. He sat in the pit, shaking, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid that the whispering voices would return. He looked down at his hands again, the blue veins glowing stronger in the dark. Every beat of his heart felt strange, slow but powerful. It was like he shared his heartbeat with someone else, something else somewhere deep beneath the sand. Then the voice came again, softer this time, no longer full of anger but heavy with sorrow. You are bound to me now, human. As I am bound to you. Eli's head jerked up, his eyes scanning the pit. Who are you really? He demanded. Why me? I didn't choose this. A long pause followed. Then the sand in front of him began to rise and swirl, forming a figure, a woman made of shimmering dust and light. Tall, graceful, with horns curling from her head like silver blades. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, her form transparent, like smoke held together by will alone. I am Asherin, she said, her voice both near and far. Queen of the Horned Ones, guardian of the years, and prisoner of the desert. Eli stepped back, his heart pounding. You're a spirit. She tilted her head slowly. I was a queen once, long before your kind set foot among the stars, she whispered. Now I am a memory, and you have taken my life into yourself. Eli shook his head, his voice weak. I didn't mean to. I thought it was just water. I was dying. I know, she said, and her tone softened. That is why you still live. I could have taken you then, but you needed life and I needed a vessel. Eli frowned, confused. A vessel? For what? Sharon raised her glowing hand, and the pit's walls lit up with ancient carvings, moving like living scenes. Her people building cities of glass, drawing energy from the sands, and then war, fire, and betrayal. My people were proud, too proud, she said quietly. We tried to trap time itself, to live forever by binding our years into the horns. But the curse turned against us, each life stolen by the next who drank. Eli watched the images with wide eyes. So everyone who used these horns stole someone else's life? She nodded slowly, until there were none left to steal from. The vision faded, and her glowing form dimmed. I sealed my last years in that horn, waiting for one worthy to carry them. And you came, Eli let out a bitter laugh. Worthy? I'm just a man who crashed his ship and wanted to live another day. She looked at him with strange calmness. And yet you live while others perished. The desert itself rejected death for you. Do you not wonder why? Eli didn't answer. His mind spinning, he thought of the blue glow in his veins, the strength in his body, the way his senses had sharpened. He was no longer just human. Something inside him was changing. The queen's form flickered, her voice trembling. The curse is not complete yet, human. As long as you live, I live. But if you die before my years are returned, we both vanish. Eli looked up sharply. Then tell me how to fix this, how to give them back. The oasis of glass, she whispered. Beyond the dunes where the sky touches the ground, there lies the heart of my curse. Reach it, and I may reclaim what you took. Before Eli could reply, the ground trembled violently. Sand spilled from the pit walls, and the faint sound of something vast moving beneath the surface echoed around them. Asherin's eyes widened. They are coming, she whispered. Who? Eli shouted, backing away. The keepers of the horns. The guardians of the curse. They sense your breath, your stolen years. They will hunt until the balance is restored. The sand exploded beside him, and a tall shape rose, its body made of bones and dust, its head crowned with a broken horn, Glowing eyes locked onto him. Another one rose behind it, then another, until the pit filled with monstrous shapes, whispering in unison, "Return the years. Return what was taken." Eli stumbled backward, fear burning in his chest. "What do I do?" He shouted. "Run!" Asharan cried, raising her hand. Blue fire burst from her form, striking the creatures and scattering them for a moment. "Run east. Follow the twin suns when they set." Eli didn't think. He climbed out of the pit, his hands tearing on the rough sand, his lungs burning, the blue light under his skin flaring brighter with each movement. The ground shook as the keepers roared below, their glowing eyes following him through the darkness. When he reached the surface, the desert stretched endless again. But now he could see strange shapes in the distance, ruins half buried in the sand, towers broken and tilted, glowing faintly like dying embers. Behind him, the ground split open, and one of the keepers rose higher than the dunes, its voice a thunder of rage. "The thief of life runs from the grave." Eli ran until his legs ached, until his heart pounded like thunder in his ears. The queen's voice whispering in his mind, guiding him. "Do not stop. The desert feeds on fear. Move, human, move." The dunes blurred under his feet, and as he ran, a strange thing happened. The sands began to glow faintly beneath his steps, forming a trail of light behind him. Like the desert itself recognized him by dawn, he collapsed behind a shattered stone pillar, the ruins of some ancient temple around him, his breath heavy, the horn still pulsing, and in the distance the keeper's eyes faded into the dunes. Waiting for night to fall again, he looked up at the rising suns and whispered, "An oasis of glass. Asharan, if you're real, you'd better be leading me somewhere worth living for." But deep inside, her voice answered soft and sad, "You are walking the path I once walked, human. The path of the dying queen." The twin suns rose slowly over the endless dunes, painting the desert gold and red. Eli sat against the broken stone pillar, his breath heavy, sand clinging to his skin, his thoughts tangled. The horn on his wrist glowed faintly with every heartbeat. He could feel her inside him, the queen. Asharan, silent but awake, watching him through his own eyes. He wiped sweat from his forehead, staring at the horizon where dunes rolled like waves. "You said I took your 50 years, he muttered. "Then take them back. I don't want this." Her voice came softly, like the wind passing through hollow bones. "It cannot be undone, not here, not now." Eli clenched his fists, anger rising. "Then what am I supposed to do? Run from sand monsters until I drop dead?" "You must go east," she whispered, "to the oasis of glass where my life began, and my curse sleeps still. Only there can balance be restored." Eli looked around at the ruins, their carvings buried, their stones broken, but faintly glowing with the same blue light that ran through his veins. "Your people built this?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "Once. These towers touched the stars. We believed we had conquered death, but the horns we forged to hold our years became prisons instead. Every life extended by taking another." Eli touched the carvings with his hand, feeling the grooves pulse faintly under his fingers. "So your people destroyed themselves trying to live forever," he said, and she answered, "We feared the end more than we respected life. We thought eternity was strength, but it was a chain." He let out a bitter laugh. "Doesn't sound that different from humans." The queen was quiet for a long moment, then she said softly, "Perhaps that is why the horn chose you." Eli frowned. "Chose me? I didn't choose anything. Fate rarely asks permission," she whispered. "It only tests the willing." He sighed and stood up. Brushing sand from his clothes, his body felt stronger again, faster, his muscles full of energy that wasn't his. "Fine," he muttered. "I'll find your oasis, but after that, I want my life back." "You may not like the price," she warned. "I already don't," he said, and started walking. The suns climbed higher, burning everything in sight, and the desert stretched endless, yet he didn't tire. He felt his body moving with strange ease, his senses sharp. He could hear the whisper of the wind, the crawling of insects under the sand, even the beating of his own heart like a drum inside a hollow shell. By noon he reached a ridge where the sand was blackened. Glass shards sticking out like frozen waves, the air shimmered, and he could smell something faintly metallic. Asharan's voice trembled in his mind. "We are close to the scars of my war, where the first horns were made." Eli crouched beside a large piece of black glass, his reflection shining back at him, but it wasn't quite him. His eyes were faintly silver, and faint markings glowed across his face. Like ancient runes, what's happening to me? He whispered. You are changing, she said, her tone quiet. My years are rewriting your body, reshaping you to carry what it cannot hold. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, I'm not turning into one of you. It has already begun, she said sadly. Every breath you take draws from my power. Every heartbeat ties us closer. Before he could respond, a low rumble echoed through the dunes, the ground trembled, and pillars of dust rose in the distance. Eli's body tensed. They're coming again, he said. Yes, she replied. The keepers never stop. They smell the years on your blood, Eli ran. Sliding down the ridge, shards of glass cutting his boots, his heart pounding. The wind screamed as if alive. Shadows moved behind him, fast and relentless. He could see their eyes glowing, shapes forming from sand and bone, whispering in their haunting chorus, and give it back. Return what was stolen. He tripped and rolled, the horn pulsing violently as if trying to protect him. Blue light exploded from it, forming a shield of energy that rippled like water. The keepers crashed against it and shattered into dust. Eli fell to his knees, gasping. What? What was that? My protection, Asheran whispered. But it drains both of us. Do not use it again unless you must. He looked at the fading light, his heart racing. You keep saying us like we're one thing. We are, she said simply. Until you reach the oasis, your breath is mine. And mine is yours. He stood again, sweat dripping, his hand shaking slightly. He didn't like this bond. He didn't like her calm tone, but he couldn't deny that without her. He would be dead as the suns began to set, painting the sky with fire and violet. Eli saw something far away, a faint shimmer. Like a lake reflecting starlight, he stopped, pointing. That's it, isn't it? Asheran's voice grew faint, almost reverent. The oasis of glass, where my soul was sealed, but then her tone changed, hard and cold. Be warned, human. Not all who reach it return, for the desert tests the heart, and the heart lies easily. Eli swallowed hard, staring at the glowing horizon. You could have mentioned that sooner. If I had, you might not have walked this far, she said softly. He looked at his glowing wrist, the horn pulsing like a living heart, and whispered, What happens when I get there? Asheran's voice was almost a whisper now, fading with the wind. Then we will see whether your soul is stronger than the curse you carry. The wind grew cold again. The stars blinked to life, and in the distance, something massive moved beneath the dunes, its roar low and ancient, echoing through the night like thunder buried under sand. Eli stared into the darkness, fear and determination burning in his eyes. Whatever that is, he said under his breath, I'll face it. Because I'm not dying out here again. And as he walked toward the shining horizon, the horn glowed brighter, like it too remembered the path, and deep beneath the sand, the desert itself began to stir. The night melted into a pale dawn, the twin suns peeking above the dunes once more, but this time the light seemed softer, almost sacred. Eli dragged himself forward through the cooling sands, his steps slow but steady. And there, far ahead, something shimmered on the horizon like a mirror stretched across the desert. His heart leapt, his cracked lips formed a weak smile. The oasis, he whispered. I found it. The horn on his wrist pulsed faster, and Asheran's voice echoed faintly in his head. Be careful, human. What you see there may not be what it seems. Eli didn't care. His throat burned, his body ached. All he wanted was water, life, peace. He stumbled down the last dune, and before him spread a wide lake that glowed like glass under the twin suns. Its surface perfectly still, reflecting the sky so clearly that it was impossible to tell where heaven ended and the water began. He knelt by the edge, reaching out to touch it, but his fingers met not liquid, but hard, smooth crystal, cold as ice. The reflection rippled slightly, showing not his face but a version of him with silver eyes and faint horns, his stomach twisted. No, that's not me, he muttered, pulling back. Asheran's voice came again, soft but heavy. It is you, human, or what you are becoming. He looked down at his reflection again, this time noticing that it wasn't just staring back. It was smiling. Cold and knowing, Eli stumbled away, his heart racing. You said I could fix this, he shouted into the still air. You said this place could end it. The air shimmered, and from the heart of the oasis, light rose like mist, forming shapes, figures tall and graceful, glowing faintly blue, horned like Asheran, their faces empty, their hands reaching toward him, They are echoes, she said through him. My people, trapped in glass for eternity. The figures moved slowly, circling him, whispering in broken voices. Return what you took. Give us back the years. Eli backed away, fear crawling up his spine. I didn't take from you. He shouted. I just wanted to live. The whispers grew louder, overlapping until they became a storm of sorrow. Every breath you take, every beat of your heart feeds on what remains of us. He dropped to his knees, covering his ears. Stop it! I didn't choose this! Then suddenly silence, and out of the blinding light stepped Asheran herself. Not as a ghost this time, but almost solid, her form clearer, her eyes glowing faintly silver, her skin like moonlight, her horns shimmering with faint blue light. She looked at him with calm sadness. You reached the oasis, human, but to return what was taken, you must give something greater than years. Eli looked up, confused. What do you mean? She stepped closer, her feet leaving no marks on the glass. To return my life. You must offer your soul's will, the strength that kept you alive, the fire that refused to die in the desert. He shook his head. You mean my life again, don't you? You want to take it all? Asheran's eyes flickered. No, I want to be whole again, and for that one of us must fade. Eli took a step back, his breathing uneven. So that's your plan? Use me to walk again? Her voice trembled, almost breaking. You don't understand. I was trapped for centuries. Watching the sands eat my world, I begged the stars for release. But when you drank from my horn, you woke me. I can live again, but only through you. He stared at her, torn between pity and anger. I gave you 50 years of my body already, he said, his voice low. How much more do you want? She closed her eyes. The desert will not allow two lives to share one soul for long. It will consume us both. The ground beneath them began to hum, faint cracks forming on the surface of the glassy oasis, blue light spilling through them like veins of fire. Eli looked around, panic rising. It's breaking apart! Yes, Asheran said softly. The balance must be restored. Decide now, either give me my life back or take my place. The air around them grew thick. The reflection of the suns twisted and multiplied, and from the cracks below, voices began to rise again, this time desperate, pleading, choose, choose. Eli's mind raced, his chest burned. He wanted to live, but deep down he knew he had been given a second chance at the cost of another, a wrong that had to be righted. Yet he couldn't bring himself to die again. Not here, not now. Then the reflection in the glass spoke. The other Eli, the one with silver eyes. She lies, it said. She wants your body, not balance. She will consume you like she consumed her people. Eli turned to Asheran. Is that true? She didn't answer, but tears formed in her glowing eyes. The reflection laughed softly. Kill her and live, or give her what she wants and vanish, your choice. Thief of life. The ground cracked wider, the sky flashing with lightning. The horn on Eli's wrist burned with blinding light. His arm shaking violently, he screamed, clutching it. Asheran stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Trust me, human, please. He looked at her trembling hands, her eyes full of something he hadn't seen in anyone. Not anger, not greed, but sorrow, deep and endless. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The wind, the cracking glass, even the echoes went still. Eli's voice broke. If I give it back, what happens to me? You will fade, she said softly. But your name will live in the desert's breath, remembered as the one who freed us. Eli took a deep breath, his heart pounding, the horn glowing brighter. He stared into her eyes, then at his reflection, torn between survival and redemption. The desert roared again, louder this time, and Asheran extended her hand. Choose. Before the desert decides for you, he closed his eyes, the light surrounding him like fire, and whispered, then take it. And as her hand touched his chest, the world shattered into a storm of blue light and thunder, the oasis exploding in a wave of glowing shards that rose toward the twin suns like 1,000 pieces of broken heaven. The explosion of blue light swallowed the desert whole. The sky turned white for a heartbeat, then broke apart into silence. Sand drifted through the air like snow, and from the heart of the shattered oasis rose a massive pillar of glass. Glowing with the light of 1,000 stars, Eli lay motionless at its base, his body scorched by the energy that had ripped through him. The horn on his wrist cracked and dull now, its light fading. Asheran stood beside him, her form more solid than ever, breathing for the first time in centuries, her silver eyes wide with shock and awe. It worked, she whispered, her voice trembling. I live again. But even as she said the words, the ground began to shake. The air pulsed with deep rhythmic vibrations, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. And a sound rose from the desert, an ancient roar so deep it made the sky tremble. Asheren's face paled. "No," she breathed. "Not him." Eli stirred, coughing weakly. His body weak but alive. What's happening?" Asheren turned toward the dunes, fear and grief mixing in her eyes. "You woke the Guardian," she said softly. "He was bound here to protect the balance, to destroy anyone who dares to break it." Before Eli could answer, the sand exploded in every direction, a storm of golden fire, and from it rose a creature so huge that it made the dunes look like pebbles. Its body was made of bones and glass, wrapped in living sand, 4 arms, a horned skull, eyes burning like suns. Its roar shook the heavens. Asheren stepped forward, her hair whipping in the storm. "Guardian of the Horns," she shouted, her voice echoing through the desert. "Stand down, it is I, Asheren, Queen of the Horned Ones, your mistress returns." The creature lowered its burning eyes, its voice deep as thunder. "You are no queen," it growled. "You are a thief who escaped the grave, feeding on mortal flesh." Eli tried to stand, his legs trembling. "She's not lying," he gasped. "She was trapped, cursed. She only wanted to live again." The Guardian's head turned toward him, the light in its eyes flaring brighter. "And what are you, human? The thief who drank her years, the desecrator of time?" Eli clenched his fist. "I didn't know. I was dying. I didn't choose this curse." The Guardian roared, its voice shaking the dunes apart. "Choice does not erase sin." With a motion like a falling mountain, it raised one arm and struck. The ground split open, sending shock waves through the desert. Asheren threw up her hands, blue energy flaring between her palms. The blast hit the shield and exploded in a storm of light. Eli was thrown back, crashing into the sand, his lungs burning, his vision spinning. He saw Asheren struggling to hold the shield, her new body shaking under the force. "Run, human," she shouted. "You can't fight him." Eli pushed himself up, his voice rough. "If I run, he kills you. This is my fight," she cried, her power flashing again. The Guardian swung its arm, smashing through her barrier. Blue fire scattered across the dunes like shards of lightning. Eli staggered forward, his hands glowing faintly, the cracked horn pulsing weakly on his wrist. He didn't understand why it still glowed. He thought it was dead, but now it responded to his heartbeat. Asheren screamed as the Guardian's massive hand reached for her. Eli ran without thinking, diving between them, the horn on his arm flaring with sudden, blinding light. The Guardian froze, staring down at him, its booming voice rumbling, "Impossible!" "The bond remains?" Eli stood, his whole body shaking, the blue light burning from his skin. "You said you protect balance," he shouted. "Then protect it. I gave her back her life. I gave up everything. What more do you want?" The Guardian tilted its head, the flames in its eyes dimming slightly. "You gave what was not yours to give," it said slowly. "But your sacrifice was not false." Asheren stepped forward, her voice weak. "Please, Ancient One, let him go. The curse is broken. My years are mine again. And he is free." The creature looked between them for a long moment, then growled, "Free? No mortal who shares the years of the Queen walks free." It raised one hand, pointing a claw at Eli. "He carries a piece of you still, bound by your will." Asheren looked at Eli, horror dawning in her eyes. "He's right," she whispered. "When you returned my years, you left part of yourself inside me. Your soul binds us still." Eli shook his head. "Then take it, finish it, whatever's left." "Just," the Guardian roared again. "Silence!" "The desert decides now." The ground beneath them cracked open, blue fire rising from the fissures, the air filled with the cries of long-dead voices. The Guardian's massive form began to fade, merging with the storm. "You may both live," it thundered, "but bound together forever, one's life tied to the other's, until the last grain of sand falls from the hourglass of this world." Eli felt the ground vanish under him, his body falling into darkness. Asheren screamed his name as she was pulled into the same void, their hands almost touching but not quite, blue light coiling around them both like chains of smoke. When Eli opened his eyes again, the desert was gone, replaced by a sea of stars stretching in every direction. The horn on his arm was whole again, shining with perfect light, and Asheren stood beside him, her expression unreadable. What happened?" he whispered. She looked at him, her voice quiet, full of sorrow and awe. "We are both alive," she said, "but now, neither of us can die alone." He looked at the stars, his chest heavy. "So what now?" She turned her gaze upward, her eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. Now we walk together, human, through the centuries we stole, and hope that someday the desert will forgive us both. And as the starlit wind swept across the endless emptiness, their shadows merged into one, glowing faintly blue, bound by the curse of years, bound by the price of life itself. Eli awoke to the sound of wind, soft and cold, brushing against his face. The sea of stars had faded, and he was lying on warm sand again. The twin suns hung low on the horizon, painting the sky in gold and violet for a moment. He thought it had all been a dream, until he looked down at his hand. The horn was still there, shining faintly, alive. Asharan stood beside him, no longer ghostly, no longer fading, her form now solid and real. Her skin faintly glowing under the light of the sun, she looked alive, more than anyone he had ever seen. Her silver eyes met his, and she spoke softly. The guardian has vanished. The desert is silent once more. Eli sat up, his head spinning. So, it's over? Asharan turned away, her long white hair moving like silk in the wind. No, human, she said, her voice calm but heavy. Nothing that breaks time ever truly ends. He looked around. The oasis was gone. The glass lake shattered into fine crystal dust that shimmered under the sun. Strange flowers had begun to bloom where the cracks once were. Tiny blue petals growing from the sand. It was the first sign of life he had seen on this barren planet. What is this? He asked quietly, touching one of the glowing petals. The desert's forgiveness, Asharan whispered. You gave back what was stolen, and now it remembers how to live. Eli smiled faintly, for the first time feeling peace, but it didn't last. A sharp pain burned through his chest. His veins glowed blue again, brighter and brighter until the light hurt to look at. He gasped, clutching his heart. Asharan, what's happening to me? She turned, panic flashing across her face. The bond, she said, it's waking again. The Guardian's decree. Our lives are one now. Your pulse feeds mine. Eli fell to his knees, his vision spinning. So I'm dying again? No, she whispered, kneeling beside him, her hand on his chest. You're not dying. You're changing. The pain faded slowly, replaced by a strange calm. His heartbeat steadied, and when he looked up, he could see everything with crystal clarity. The heat waves, the pulse of the sand, the movement of tiny insects beneath the surface. His senses sharpened beyond human limits. What did you do to me? He breathed. Asharan looked into his eyes, her voice soft. I didn't do this, Eli, the desert did. It bound us beyond life and death. He stared at his reflection in her eyes, realizing that his irises were no longer brown but faintly silver, glowing like hers. So I'm not human anymore, he said quietly. She smiled sadly. No, you are something new, something the desert has never seen, a bridge between what was mortal and what was eternal. For a long time, neither spoke, only the wind moved between them, carrying the scent of the blooming sands. Finally, Eli asked, what happens now? Do we just wander forever? Asharan looked toward the horizon, her expression unreadable. Perhaps that is our punishment, she said softly, or our gift, depending on how you see it. They walked together across the dunes, the world around them slowly shifting. The glass towers of her lost city began to rise again from beneath the sand, shining faintly as if remembering the shape they once had. Ghosts of her people appeared, smiling, fading, then vanishing again into the wind. They're free now, Asharan said, tears glimmering in her eyes. After centuries, they can finally rest. Eli looked around, the world reborn, alive again, and yet he felt a strange emptiness inside him. You know, he said quietly, on Earth, we used to say every life has its price. She turned to him. And do you think yours was too high? He thought for a moment, then shook his head. No. I think it was fair. The suns began to set, their light fading into a deep crimson glow, and for the first time Asharan smiled. Not as a queen, not as a spirit, but as someone free. You gave me my years back, she said, and in return I give you mine. Eli frowned. What do you mean? She placed her hand over his heart, the horn between them glowing again. You gave up your mortal life to restore mine, but I will not live it alone. Light flared between them. Warm and blinding, the horn dissolved into dust, and when the glow faded, the mark on his wrist was gone. Eli blinked, confused. It's gone? Asharan nodded slowly. The bond remains, but now it is choice, not curse. He laughed softly, the sound carried by the wind. So we live? She looked at him, her silver eyes shining in the last light of the suns. We live. They stood together as night fell, the stars returning brighter than ever. The desert no longer dead but alive with soft blue light from the blooming sands. Eli gazed at the horizon, then at her. You know, on my world, we tell stories about gods and men, but none end like this. Asherin smiled faintly. Then perhaps you will tell this one, he chuckled. Maybe I will. Then remember, she said, her voice like the whisper of stars. Life is not about how long we live, but what we awaken in the world around us. As the night wind swept across the dunes, the two figures walked together beneath the twin moons, their footprints glowing faintly behind them. And where they passed, the desert bloomed, the sands turning to silver, the air filled with the quiet hum of rebirth. Far behind them, buried beneath the glowing dunes, the cracked horn pulsed once more, then fell silent, its task complete, and as the stars watched above, the desert whispered their names, forever bound in the story of a dying man who drank from a cursed horn and gave life back to a dead queen.